I think that the account of Jesus going on a boat with his disciples and ending up in a storm is probably one of the most familiar pictures of the gospel accounts. We come to that in Luke chapter 8. We know, if you've heard it, it's just that simple. Jesus tells the disciples, let's get in the boat, go across. On the way, the movement of the ship through the water has lulled Jesus to sleep. And while he's sleeping, a huge storm comes up. And as this storm comes up, Luke writes they were filling with water, they were in danger. And then verse 24, and they went and woke him, saying, Master, Master, we are perishing. This is an incredible scene where the storm has increased in such intensity that the disciples are afraid for their lives, and Jesus was still asleep. He was still sleeping. People, we know what it is like to go through times in our lives where we seem to be going through storms and God isn't listening. He's not answering our prayers. It feels like we're alone and he's not responding to us. That's right there in that picture. You think you're the first one to go through a storm and feel like Jesus is sleeping? No, there's nothing new about that. And it's deliberate. It's deliberate to set up these scenes that are impossible for us because it exposes something. And I'll show you what it is. And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was calm. And he said to them, where is your faith? That's what the storm was about. It was to bring the disciples to the place where they had to see that when something got impossible, there was no faith left. It's easy to say we have faith when we go to church. Everything's fine. We're loved in our church. We're loved maybe even in our families. We got our jobs. Everything's fine. And oh yes, we have faith. But God takes us through storms and is quiet on purpose. Because he has to have us at the place where we will agree with him. Where was your faith? And we agree. Yeah, Lord, where was it? I thought I had more than that. But this situation is telling me I didn't. That's important. So, it says about the disciples, and they were afraid. So, this is interesting. Before they talked to Jesus, they were afraid of the storm. After they talked to Jesus, they were afraid of him, because who calms the wind and the waves? Like, if he's upset with you about something, how would you stand a chance if he can even command a wave to just be quiet? Stop. And they were afraid of him. And they marveled, saying to one another, who then is this that he commands even winds and water, and they obey him? So now they're trembling at his word. Right here, we have to look at what was central to Jesus. And it was, where is your faith? That was the matter. As I was meditating on this, I was reminded of the Beatitudes that Jesus used at the start of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5. And I often talk about what I call the Beatitudinal Valley, or the Beatitudinal journey, because I've come to realize that all 8 of those Beatitudes started with the phrase, blessed are, meaning this is a description of people who are being blessed by God. What do they look like? As you come to this and look at what is it Jesus is showing here? What's he showing his disciples here? Well, follow it through the Beatitudes and think of it like a valley. The first 4 Beatitudes take you down to the bottom. The other 4 are leading you back up the other side. So the first Beatitude is, blessed are the poor in spirit. So that's telling us that It is a blessing when God makes us feel poor in spirit. So here's the disciples in a storm. The situation has exposed that they had no faith. That's the blessing. To be with Jesus, and he shows us our poverty of spirit. We're empty of faith. The second beatitude, taking a step further down, is blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who, when they're shown their poverty, they don't try and get back up top to make it better. They actually allow themselves to grieve their poverty of spirit, whatever it is God's showing them. In this case, their lack of faith. Do you ever feel bad that you have a lack of faith? Or is it always God's fault? Do you let yourself say, God is letting me down. God is not answering my prayers. His word couldn't be true. Poor me. God doesn't love me. Or do you go and say, you're right, God. I hate it that I have no faith. I hate it that I have so little faith. I hate it that in this scenario, I didn't trust you. And we are mourning that we could have such a lack of faith when we've been getting to know him through his word. And then the third one down, when we allow that blessed are those who mourn to actually settle in as a blessing, then it's blessed are the meek. The meek are those who, instead of thinking, I'm going to go up and fix this, I'm going to try harder, they say, God, I don't have anything to fix this lack of faith. I don't know how to do that. And so they turn to Jesus. Jesus, I'm going to trust you to help me. There's another occasion that comes up in Luke 17 where the disciples said to Jesus, Lord, increase our faith. That is the sense of meekness of, Lord, I can't do it, but would you do it? And that meekness, when we give up on ourselves and submit to Jesus, it takes us down one step further to the bottom, which is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. In other words, the ones who keep trying to do better are never satisfied because they keep failing and can never do good enough. But when we accept we can't do good enough, we don't have faith, then we let ourselves go down and hunger for it. We allow ourselves to say, God, I have no faith. I wish I was a man of faith. I wish I was a woman of faith. I wish I was a child of faith. I wish I had faith, Lord. I long for it. I read the scenarios of faith, and that's what I want to be like. That is what Jesus wants us to come to. That's why he's sometimes quiet when we're nattering, fix this, do that, make this better, Lord. And it's like, no. You need to know what it feels like to know you have no faith or very little faith, and you realize I'm hungering for the righteousness of faith. I'm hungering for it. That's what I see in these disciples. That's what would make them blessed are the merciful. That's what would lift them up to blessed are the pure in heart. That's what would lift them up to blessed are the peacemakers who are not afraid of anyone. And that would lead them up to being able to rejoice in persecution. You have to be able to go down. And so again, when Jesus challenged them, where is your faith? They had already felt that. They already knew that's what they were feeling, but maybe they'd never realized it in words. But it's right there in the picture. They were so scared of the storm. Jesus was there. They knew he was there. But they were terrified in the storm. They could have come to Jesus and say, Jesus, this is getting serious here. I'm really excited to see, like, what would you do here? And maybe he would have fun with it and say, what would you do? Because he was always trying to tell them that they needed to do things by trusting him. It wasn't just about what he was going to do. He wanted them as his disciples to be doing things out of faith. So here is a scenario. They didn't go to him in faith. And even if they didn't realize maybe they could have trusted that they gave the word, but they at least could have come to Jesus trusting he would give the word. But they had to see, sorry guys, your problem is you have little faith. That's what this is all about. We need to look at our lives And we need to look at situations and think of it through that Beatitudinal Valley. Are we on that journey? Are we accepting it? I believe that God will not lead us through that until we take the first step. And the first step is not us doing something as much as us admitting something. And this is what's hard for people, because we're so aware that we survive by being in control, right? This is very prominent these days, where people are discovering that they have self-protective things going on that makes them want to be in control. And that's the problem, is when God doesn't let us be in control, and he lets circumstances turn into impossible situations on purpose. And that's when we have to see the blessing of, okay, I guess I don't have the faith I thought I had. Can you admit that? That's a good thing. Do you realize that? Blessed are the poor in spirit. In other words, when you're feeling poor in spirit, that is God blessing you. He's blessing you to feel the poverty of your spirit. Because if he doesn't get you to feel that, you're going to think you can keep handling it yourself, like a toddler, right? I could do it myself. And God says, no. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Just a fact of life. You weren't made to do things yourself. You were made to do things with me. I am the vine, you're the branches. You were made to be a branch of me, where you can't do one thing without me. But with me, by faith, you can bear much fruit to the glory of God the Father. But we can only do that as we face the poverty of spirit, when God shows us our faith is so small. And we mourn it. I am at an age where I have had to look back on my raising of my children and listen to my children tell me things that hurt them, things I failed them, and accept, okay, I guess there was something missing there. And we have to accept that. Blessed are the poor in spirit. When a dad will accept his poverty of spirit and that he failed his children in some ways, they're saying you did, there's at least some substance to that. Blessed are the dads who will mourn. It's a blessing when we hear something about us that is a failure to be a man of faith, or to be a man of love, or to be something we should have been. It's a blessing when from our poverty of spirit we mourn that. And then we come down. Blessed are the meek, the ones who say, Jesus, I can't fix the failures of my life, but I'm trusting you to work this together for good, to make me like you now. For the rest of my life, make me like you. And that makes us hunger and thirst for a righteousness we don't have. The righteousness of living by faith. The righteousness of being filled with the love of Christ. The righteousness of being humble and holy. We hunger and thirst for that. And that will make us so merciful towards other people when God satisfies us purely by mercy. And that makes us merciful. And our hearts become pure, because all we want is to be like Jesus towards other people and to live by faith. And that makes us peacemakers who want to show other people, can I tell you how you can have peace with God? And then when the persecution comes, we know it's a blessing. It's like the disciples in Acts, where they left the temple rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer disgrace for Jesus' name. We can get to that, but only through the valley. Is there anything here where you realized, I think I see which of those blessings God has me on today? Take the next one. Tell God, I want the next one. I want to move on. Go deeper where I need to go deeper. Climb higher where I need to climb higher. I want to experience the blessing of God. And today, The disciples in a storm, facing their lack of faith, is exactly what a lot of church people need, is admitting, I think I lack faith. And then you turn to Jesus Christ like the disciples. Increase my faith. Increase our faith, Lord. And then follow him through the Beatitudinal Valley. And he will do it.